Man in Tennessee on death row is scheduled to be executed tonight in Nashville. 72-year-old Oscar Smith is on death watch at Riverbend Maximum Security Institute. His execution was delayed 2 years due to COVID. He was originally sentenced to die on June 4th of 2020. Now, some background. Smith was convicted for the 1989 murders of his estranged wife, Judy Smith, and her 2 sons from a previous marriage, Chad and Jason Burnett. He was sentenced to death for all 3 killings. Smith is once again set to die by lethal injection. My colleague John North and I were actually at an execution several years back in
That's
2018. Right. The most recent one, the execution of Billy Ray Irick from East Tennessee. John, let's talk about lethal injection versus electrocution. Some inmates on death row actually have that choice as to how they want to die between those 2 options.
They do, Robin, and some think that the worst of those 2, if you will, if you can believe it, is lethal injection. They've argued for several years, and it's still an ongoing argument in the courts, that lethal injection, by the way that the state of Tennessee does it, creates great pain and suffering for the inmate as they're put under by the sedative. They contend that it creates a kind of a drowning sensation. The inmate can't convey that, but while they're sedated, they are essentially drowning in their own fluids from their lungs.
Nicholas Sutton, the last person to be executed in Tennessee, he died by electrocution.
He chose the electric chair, which is, again, I was at that one as well, and you know, that is one that many states in the United States have said, no, that is cruel and unusual, that is not okay, but it is an option in the state of Tennessee.
When it comes to executions, John, it's a very strict process, truly over the course of 3 days. Walk us through those.
It's very, very choreographed. That's for multiple reasons, legal and otherwise. As you mentioned, the inmate is moved from the main prison there at Riverbend in Nashville. They then go to close to the execution chamber to a special cell. They stay there 3 days. They're given the option of something like, do you want a last meal and what would you like it to be? There's a dollar amount set. There used to be a local fast food restaurant where some of the inmates would order their food. And then we come to this day, execution day, and there is a specific time in which all of this begins to take place. And it's very by the book. It is very choreographed, as I said, and they stick to that timetable.
It is a very somber day, as we know from 2018 with Billy Ray Irick.
It's extremely somber. I mean, out at Riverbend, it's often remote by itself, but this has always struck me in the 2 that I have been to. There's a kind of a hush or a quiet that descends on the prison grounds. And then when you go inside and you're interacting with the guards and the other personnel, you're like, you know that this is an extremely serious matter, and it's very quiet.
Indeed it is. Well, Oscar Smith is set to be the first person to be executed in Tennessee since the start of the pandemic. Currently, there are 47 inmates on Tennessee's death row, a total of 5 executions scheduled for this year. John, a convicted murderer from Blount County set to be executed in October.
That's right. Gary Wayne Sutton, that's coming up in October. WBIR will seek to be present for that one. That was actually, he was convicted out of Blount County, but there were 2 homicides involved in that one.
All right. Well, Oscar Smith and other death row inmates are granted, as you said, John, a special meal on the day of their execution. They can opt out of that last meal if they so choose. Limitations for last meals differ state to state. For example, in Florida, last meals cannot exceed $40, and the requested food must be available locally. We are told Oscar Smith selected a double bacon cheeseburger, deep dish apple pie, and vanilla bean ice cream as his last meal. Once again, Oscar Smith set to die by lethal injection shortly after 8 o'clock tonight at Riverbend Maximum Security Prison for the 1989 murders of his estranged wife and her 2 sons. We will have much more coverage on the execution coming up tonight on the Night Beat.